All right, good evening, everyone. I am Ralph Sevelius, founder and senior wealth advisor for Boardwalk Wealth Solutions, and I'm coming to you live from the headquarters of Boardwalk Wealth Solutions right here in Wesley Chapel, Florida. I appreciate you all being here. I got the feedback from the previous webinar sessions that you wanted to see my smiling face. So here I am, and you can see that we're right here in sunny Tampa, Florida, palm trees and all. So I hope everyone's doing well this evening. We are going to continue our webinar series on our trademark process, the Prosperity Pathfinder. I appreciate everyone who has joined us for our previous sessions. We are now going to venture into stage 3 of the Prosperity Pathfinder. We have gone through 3 sessions prior to this, the first one being an overall orientation of the the Prosperity Pathfinder process. Stage 1 being the current manifest. Stage 2 is the destination clarifier, and that brings us here to stage 3, which is probably the most encompassing phase of the entire Prosperity Pathfinder process, and it is our most value add part of the process from the standpoint of us and me adding value to the process and providing with you with the value that you're looking for. So we'll move right into this. Here's our agenda, pretty straightforward. Don't let it fool you. There's lots of content. Introduction about Boardwalk Wealth Solutions. I'll give you a brief. Most of you, know me and you know Kim, but I'll give you an overall introduction to our practice here. Then we'll dive right into the Prosperity Pathfinder, specifically the Journey Navigator. So here's our team. We've got myself, of course, founder, senior wealth advisor, and we have Kimberly Terenzi, who is our practice manager. Little background on me. Again, many of you know me already, but just as a brief summary, bachelor in economics from a bachelor's degree in economics, that is, from Wake Forest University. I then became an Army officer because I was in the ROTC program at Wake Forest, and got to serve my country and see the world for 4 years from 1998 to 2002. Received my master's in business from the University of Florida in 2005. Actually entered the financial services industry as a financial advisor in 2007. And then over the course of the next 5 years, I worked my way and studied to become a certified financial planner, which I was awarded that designation in 2012. And I've been serving clients in the role of a financial advisor for 18 years. Community involvement, I've lived in the Wesley Chapel area for about 23 years now, which is hard to believe. It's gone by very quickly. But I am a board member of many different charitable organizations, Academy at the Lakes being one of them, which is the school that my son just graduated from this last spring. I'm a board member of the Jackson in Action 83 Foundation, which is a foundation founded by our late Vincent Jackson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to serve local military family members and their needs. And then I'm also a board member of our local Chamber of Commerce here, the North Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce. When I'm not doing all of these things, I am spending time with my 2 kids. Luke, who I just mentioned, graduated high school. He's now at Florida State University as a freshman. And Tessa, who is a sophomore at Angeline Academy of Innovation, which is a charter school here in Pasco County. So that is my life and history in a nutshell. And then we have Kim Terenzi, our beloved practice manager. She is a graduate of University of South Florida. She served 14 years as an elementary school teacher. I strongly believe that all of those skills and abilities have transferred extremely well into her current role as our practice manager. She has served us now for over 2 years, and she is essentially the heartbeat of our operations. She ensures that our clients are being communicated with, that they have all of their administrative needs met on a daily basis, and she's essentially the point of contact for our clients for any immediate needs on a daily basis. So next, how we serve our clients. So we serve our clients in many different ways. This is sort of it in a nutshell. We provide personalized financial planning using our trademark process, which you're learning about in this webinar series, the Prosperity Pathfinder. We provide regular updates to our clients in terms of market updates, legal updates, new laws passing that might affect their financial future. We do client reviews on an ongoing basis. We host client events to bring everybody together. We also provide transparent communication, and we provide a very transparent fee structure to our clients. We have access to a very dynamic and comprehensive list of portfolio managers, investment products, insurance products, and financial services across the board, and also consulting services from the standpoint that in our back office we have tax teams and estate planning teams that can offer us suggestions. If we provide them with certain client circumstances, we can bounce ideas off of them. We also have customized and integrated financial tools, one of which I'm going to go into a bit of detail with you today. I'm going to demonstrate our Right Capital financial planning software program, which is a fully integrated program that has two-way access. I obviously have access on the advisor side, and you as a client have access on the client side to where you can log in and view your financial plan at any point in time and monitor it on your own as well. So this is our visual of our Prosperity Pathfinder process. And as you can see, it doesn't really have a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We do it in that way, as we're onboarding clients, just as a procedural way to do it. But in general, as we work over many years together, we're going to be working in all of these phases in different points in times. We may be working in multiple phases at the same time. There's always going to be flexibility in these plans that we build, and there's always going to be room to make those changes. And the reason why is because your life changes. Obviously, there's some times when we have to respond to market changes or things that are outside of our control or outside of our immediate sphere of influence. But for the most part, changes made in a financial plan have to do with changes that are going on in your life. As we all know, life throws you curveballs from time to time, and we have to have room in these plans to make changes. There's also, different time frames for each of these phases. So some of these things can be implemented immediately. Some of them take some time to implement over the course of, maybe even years. So we're always working in different phases of this process. I put this together as a visual for clients to see what the process is, and they can kind of get a perspective on where they are at any given point and what phase we're working in, so that you can sort of understand the financial planning process a little better. Because I think one of the major problems with our industry is that everything is very obscure, and it really doesn't have to be that way. I believe that financial planning is simple. It's just not easy. And that's why you need a partner to help you through the process. So let's get right into the Journey Navigator. So before I get there, this is the question. And if you were here for the last webinar, you are familiar with this R factor question. The R factor question is this: if we were meeting 3 years from today, and I put in there 3, 5, 10, 30. The reason why is because every goal might have a different time frame on the goal. But let's just use 3 years for the sake of this example. If we were meeting 3 years from today, and you were to look back over those years to today, what has to have happened during that period, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy about your progress? And this is just a great launching pad into the discussion around your goals, because a lot of folks just kind of, accept these very simple, run-of-the-mill goals, retirement age, retirement income. Those are important, but this hopefully helps expand your mind a little bit. And one of my main goals for clients is to really help inspire you to look to achieve your full potential. And even if that means documenting goals that you think you might never achieve, let's get them documented. Let's put them on paper. Because if we don't do that, then you definitely will never achieve them, because we don't have a goal. We don't have a target. Um, I do have to mention, this question is not an original thought of mine. This question came to me through my coaching program called Strategic Coach. And it's a coaching program for entrepreneurs. It's mainly business coaching, but there's a lot of personal development, because those personal and professional very much overlap once you become an entrepreneur. But this is a part of their personal development side of things. And when I read this question, I thought, man, this is really applicable to the financial planning process, specifically in the goal setting phase of it, which is in our process is the destination clarifier. So I asked them for permission to use this question. Disclaimer is on the bottom. The R Factor question is a registered trademark of Strategic Coach, but feel free to utilize it with your friends and family as well. Okay, so now once we have those goals set, this is the Journey Navigator in a nutshell. And again, I'm going to take you over and switch over to our financial planning software demonstration, so I can show you exactly how we do this, how we accomplish this. So we're not just talking in platitudes here. But our recommendations are tailored to your unique circumstances. And we know what those are because we've been through the current manifest phase of this process. And your unique personalized goals, which we also know what those are because we've already accomplished and completed the destination clarifier phase. All of my recommendations will utilize my many years of wisdom and experience in dealing with clients and helping them achieve their goals. I've seen it happen. So it's kind of a been there, done that. And it's also coupled with the resources that I have available to me on the LPL Independent Advisor platform. Before I went independent, I sort of believed the myth that on the independent side, you would not have as much access to resources as you do as an employee advisor. It has actually turned out to be the exact opposite. I have more resources available to me now and more services that I can offer my clients than I ever could have hoped to have as an employee advisor. So my clients have the sort of the luxury of me having a lot of arrows in my quiver to help them solve their problems. All of my recommendations will cover investment strategies, tax strategies, insurance strategies, estate planning strategies, lots of strategies going on. And these are not just going to be all things that I come up with and present to you. They're going to be things that we collaborate with other professionals and come up with the best possible solution. So with your tax strategies, for example, I will collaborate with your CPA. If we don't have a CPA, I will recommend one for you. And also, we have a tax team in our back office at LPL that if I have a specific tax situation, I can go to them and say, hey, here's the situation. What are your ideas? So we have multiple minds working on the same problem and hopefully can come up with the best solution. That's the same on the insurance side, estate planning side. We have a collaboration on all of these different strategies that we're going to recommend. And I never just say, I shouldn't say never. Rarely do I say, this is the only way that we're going to be able to achieve this one goal. Typically it is, okay, we have option A, B, or C. Here's the pros and cons of each one. Which one do you feel most comfortable with? Because I believe we can get there using any one of these. It's just a matter of what do you feel most comfortable with? And then of course, we're going to go through a detailed plan on how to execute on those strategies as well. So let me switch over here now to our financial planning software. And what I've done is I've built in to our system a sample client. So there might be a Joe and Jane sample out there, but this is not their financial plan. This is a fictitious financial plan that I've built into the system so that I can just demonstrate to you the capabilities of the Right Capital financial planning software, which is directly linked, by the way, to our LPL so that they can import all of the real-time numbers from your investment accounts into this system. This is our dashboard. So when our client logs into the system, this is what they're going to see. This is completely customizable, so you can, move around these different gauges, and it's sort of like your instrument panel on an airplane, so to speak, where you can kind of get an overview of where you're at. So you've got your probabilities for success. I'll show you what that means. Tax rate, net worth, your balance sheet, your current balance sheet, how you're allocated with your investments. You can see all sorts of things here. You can even make yourself notes on the bottom. If you start thinking of something that we may need to talk about during our next review, you can make a note of it, and it'll be there. And when we meet the next time, we can discuss. So I'm just going to briefly go over what the current manifest and the destination clarifier looks like in this platform, so that you can understand how we get to the Journey Navigator part of it. So the net worth, the current manifest, we're typically dealing under this profile section here, because we're going to get a good idea of your net worth. We're going to get a good idea of your current income, your savings, your expenses, your family situation, and then the blueprint just kind of gives you a visual representation of everything. The goals section is where we capture everything that we talk about during the destination clarifier phase of the Prosperity Pathfinder process. So current net worth, as you can see here for Joe and Jane sample, we've got their bank assets, credit card, investments, loans, property. We can build out pretty much any asset that you have, and any liability that you have, we can build out in this net worth. And then we also have the capability here to aggregate. So just give me a minute here. Okay. So then under aggregation, you can actually go in here and you can link external accounts. So even if your accounts are not at LPL, which if you're a client now, you know that all of your accounts are currently housed at LPL Financial. But if you have outside accounts, like your bank accounts, maybe a 401k, an insurance product, whatever it may be, there's literally thousands of financial institutions here that we can link to your account, so we can get real-time data migrated into your financial plan on a daily basis. If we don't have the ability to do that, then we can always manually add those accounts, just like I did here for Joe and Jane sample, and we can do it for many different types of assets. And then we can capture income. So here we have Joe's salary. They've got a side hustle going on here for 40 grand a year. We have their Social Security built in here, and then Jane's making a salary as well, so we've got that captured. We can also add any self-employment, future pensions that they're expecting, annuity income, and then all the sorts of different additional income if it's applicable. Savings, we're going to capture here what their current savings rates are. Expenses, we can either take a sort of generalized simple approach. What I like to do even more so is to do a detailed worksheet. And in this detailed worksheet, typically people find out what they think they're spending is actually a lot less than what they're actually spending. So I like to do the detailed spreadsheet just to get a better, accurate picture of what your current current expenditures are. But for the sake of this illustration, we're just going to do a general estimate. And then we capture their tax situation. And then we get an idea of what their family looks like. So it looks like Joe and Jane have 3 children and a grandchild. Sometimes we're going to add in others. So we'll add in like a parent, for example. It's really what we want to capture here is like really anyone who has a financial impact on your situation. So dependents. So we might add like a parent, for example. We might add a parent in a situation where it's an aging parent that you're going to have to end up financially caring for. We definitely want to capture that here, because we're going to have to make sure that we plan for the fact that you're going to have to financially care for them. So then we get an overall blueprint, and you can see here it's a visual. It's basically your net worth in a visual format. And the most valuable thing about this is, number one, we get on one page we get who's involved. We also get how each account is registered, whether it's in Joe's name only, Jane's name only, jointly held. And then we can see, okay, does this need to be moved over here? Does this asset need to be in a trust? Do they have a trust? And we can sort of just determine, do we have it currently set up the best way possible? You can also see your goals on a nice timeline in a visual format. And then you can also see your income, savings, and expenses in a nice visual format. And this just, again, is a good double check on, do we have everything captured here precisely the way it currently is? So that's all part of the current manifest. And then if we go in the goals section, you can see here, this is where we capture everything that we came up in the destination clarifier. So after we've answered that question of what has to have happened for you to be happy, this is where we capture it. And we can build in all sorts of different customizable goals. Even in the college goal section, you can put in here specific college, because the system has estimates of what that college, might cost. You could do a national average. You can even do a specific state and what the typical public state in-state tuition might be. So you can get a clear picture of that. So that's just an example of how you can really customize these goals, and we can add in goals for pretty much any type of situation that you might have. So this is where we capture the destination clarifier. Once we have all of that in there, and again, that was just sort of a nice little review of the things that we went over in the last two webinars. In the last two webinars, the reason I did this as a demonstration is because I didn't actually live demonstrate the capabilities of the Right Capital financial planning software during those webinars. So I wanted you to kind of get an idea or a picture of how exactly we tangibly do that in practical terms with the current manifest and the destination clarifier. And that brings us to the Journey Navigator. The Journey Navigator will essentially encompass all of these other tabs that you see at the top of your screen. So when we're talking about investments, for example, this is where we can plan out, how do we need to have your accounts invested across the board? So we look at your current allocation, and it looks like Joe and Jane have about an 80-20 allocation between stocks and bonds. And then we're looking at saying, okay, well, we need your target allocation to growth, or we need to go aggressive. And again, this isn't an exact science. This is just more of a guideline. But of course, the higher the risk of your target allocation, the more likely, the higher the actual return might be over time. So we're trying to find a target allocation that meets both your risk tolerance and helps to make sure that you can reach the goals that you've set for yourself. So this is where we do all of our investment recommendations. And then once we get that target allocation, then I will make specific recommendations on the investment platform that I believe you should be on in order to achieve those investment allocations. You can get very detailed in this investment section. As you can see up here, you've got asset allocation. We go into sector and style, concentration, tax allocation. For most people, we can keep it fairly simple, but there are definitely specific situations where we want to get into very detailed investment planning and make sure that we're doing it in the most tax efficient way possible to get the best performance that we can. And then we go into, well, I'll skip retirement right now. I'm going to go into insurance. This is where we can make insurance recommendations. You can see here, neither one of them have a protection need, but let's just say that, one of the two spouses might, be in trouble if something were to happen to the other spouse, and they may need insurance coverage. That protection need is going to show whatever amount that the system sort of recommends as a general rule of thumb, how much insurance they might need. And then what we'll do is we'll put a plan in place to meet that need, whether that be term insurance, permanent life insurance, maybe it's an annuity with a death benefit, some way, shape, or form to make sure that you feel comfortable you have the insurance that you need. And it's also going to include the insurance that you might already have outside of what we offer. Education planning, this will help us plan for the education, see if we have any shortfalls for any of the children or grandchildren that we want to plan for in terms of education. And then we can come up with the actual strategies on how to meet the goals that you have for your education needs. Same thing with tax strategies. This is just a kind of, again, an overview of the system and how we come up with those tax strategies. So like in this one here, we're looking at, where should we take your income first in retirement? Should it be from your Roth and then from your regular IRA and then from taxable assets, or vice versa? And that matters. That matters tremendously. And so we'll come up with a plan and a proposed strategy on how exactly you're going to draw down your retirement assets in retirement to make sure it's tax efficient. And then also a strategy on how making sure that you're getting all the tax deductions that you need in the current year, whether it makes sense to contribute to a Roth or a traditional, whatever is applicable in your situation. And then you have your estate as well. So this also, obviously includes, like, do you have a will? Who's the executor? When was it last updated? We capture all of your pertinent estate planning documents in this section here. And then we also keep track of any other specific assets that you have, like, for example, an outside 401k. Do we have a primary beneficiary listed on there? And do we have a contingent? And who are they? And is that exactly how you want it set up? Same thing with any other outside accounts. We can capture any accounts that you have here and make sure that the beneficiaries are set up the way you want the way you want them set up. And then for retirement, this is where we go into strategies on overall retirement, and it also tells us what is your likelihood for success. And the likelihood for success is based on what they call a Monte Carlo simulation. I'm not going to get too detailed into this because you probably go to sleep if I do. But the Monte Carlo simulation is taking the odds of what all of your current goals are, taking what your current situation is and your current resources and everything we have captured here, and what are the odds that you're going to meet all of those goals given the way that we've proposed for you to be invested and given your current circumstances. So that's how these odds come in. We all know that this is not an exact science. It's more of like a hurricane, plotting chart. The further you are out, the more variable the results are going to be. So that's why, as we go along, we're going to continue to hone that plan to make sure that that we're still on track to where you want to be at the end. And then, here is where we can kind of tweak these things. So let's say, Joe says, well, what happens if I retire at 62? Okay, well, let's tweak that gauge and we'll refresh it. And we'll say, okay, it went from 94 to 85. Are you comfortable with 85%? Typically, we like to see that likelihood for success somewhere between 75 and 90%. 85 is still a pretty decent number. So I would say, as of right now, yeah, that looks good. We'll continue to monitor it as we go forward and make sure it still looks good. But as of right now, maybe we keep the proposed plan at 62. We'll also go into your Social Security and we'll say, okay, when is the best time for you to apply for Social Security? What are the results of that? So you can go, here they're comparing your optimal strategy versus current strategy. Let's say you want to take it as early as possible. Okay. Current strategy is as early as possible. So let's go to age 70. Well, you can see here, this is kind of what I tell most people, that, if you take it at 62, you're getting income in all these years. You start taking it at 70, it's going to take you a little while to catch up to, where all this income that you missed out on prior to age 70. But this just, again, it gives you an idea of the capability of this system and the fact that if you're asking that question of, like, when should I take Social Security? Well, we can give you some ideas of what it looks like to wait or take it early, or, what the comparison of those things. Medicare, we also can talk about what your proposed supplemental policies should be once you apply for Medicare. Medicare can be a leviathan of just confusion when you get there, because there's so many different things you have to consider and think about. We can help you navigate, and we also have experts in Medicare in our back office that can help us navigate Medicare for you. And so anyway, so that's it in a nutshell. I'll go back to the dashboard. You can kind of see again, this captures everything we just talked about, and it sort of gives you your dashboard. And again, this is like an instrument panel on your airplane as you're going, so you can always have a gauge of where you are. So I will go back to, let's go back to, excuse me for a second here. So hopefully that gives you an idea of our capacity and like how we actually execute on the Journey Navigator and on our recommendations. And inside of that platform also, there is a tasks page where as we're going through it, we can assign tasks. And I will be assigned tasks and also you will be assigned tasks. So it is a two-way street. For example, if one of my recommendations is, hey, you should reallocate your 401k investments to this, and then up your percentage of savings into your 401k to this, that is a task we will assign you. You will get reminded of that task on a regular basis via email and say, hey, have you done this yet? And so that's how we execute on that. And again, like I said, each goal will also have different timeframes on them. So it's not like we're going to overwhelm you with all this stuff to do right out of the gate. We're going to say, okay, here's the most pertinent stuff we need to execute on immediately, and the stuff that we can execute on immediately. We're going to get this done right away. Here's the stuff we'll meet back here in a few months, and we'll start tackling this other thing. And then maybe in 6 months from now, we'll start, working on your estate documents, making sure those are in place, or whatever the case is. So it's always an over time thing. And it's the analogy of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that brings us to, again, the overall view. Now, the next phase that we're going to be working on in our webinar series is the legacy multiplier. The legacy multiplier is specifically answering the question of how do you want to be remembered? This is not just who are you going to leave your money to. Of course, that's a big part of it. You want to make sure it's set up properly so that there's no infighting, and the right people, the way that you want things to happen is going to happen. But it's also what happens when you can no longer manage your own financial affairs and you're still living. And I know that's a tough question to think about or ponder, but it's a very realistic and practical one that we need to address, because the last thing you want to be remembered by is that everything was a mess, and that your family didn't even have time to grieve because they were too caught up in having to deal with unknotting all the knots in the system. So there are ways to put things in place to make sure things are very smooth and simple for your family in the event they have to begin managing your financial affairs for you, and that the right people are in place to manage your financial affairs, and that the right things are being done. So it's not a matter of giving up control. It's actually giving you more control, because you're speaking when you can no longer speak, and you're saying how things are going to go even when you're no longer able to. So join us for that next phase, because that is going to be a critical one. Again, never very comfortable subjects to talk about, but very, very pertinent and very important to your financial planning. If you'd like to get started with us, or if you have family members or friends that you would like to refer over to us, wanted to give you an overview of the onboarding process. We always start out with a very casual initial fit phone call. I call it the fit phone call because both parties, both the prospective client and us, are going to have a casual phone conversation and determine whether this seems like a good initial fit. Obviously, prospective client is going to determine, do you guys do what I'm looking for? And in turn, we also need to decide, is this client a good fit for our practice? Because the last thing we want to do is bring on somebody who's looking for us to do something different than what we do for our clients, and it will detract or distract from the service levels that we can provide to the clients that we already have. So we're both looking for, whether or not this is a good fit. If it is, we're not making any decisions on that initial phone call. We're not signing anything. We're not, we're just basically doing some discovery. And then I will follow up with a phone call 2 days later, or, a few days later, and determine whether or not we both feel like this is a good fit. and if it's worthwhile to start scheduling that initial discovery meeting, which would be essentially the current manifest meeting with a new client. So that's kind of our process. It's a very casual, there's no pressure in this, because the last thing we would want to do is for somebody to come on board and then find out that this isn't a good fit. So we want to make sure we give plenty of due diligence there. So if you'd like to follow us, Boardwalk Wealth Solutions Facebook page, there's the QR code. Please follow us on Facebook. We also have my LinkedIn page, and soon to come is an Instagram page. So that will be coming in the near future, but you can pretty much find everything on the Facebook page. And then here's our contact info if you'd like to reach out to us at any time. Want to say thank you very much for, again, joining me this evening live from Boardwalk Wealth Solutions headquarters right here in sunny Wesley Chapel, Florida. Please join us again for the next webinar. Again, that's going to be the Legacy Multiplier, and we'll send out invites to that. And in the meantime, any questions, concerns, feel free to reach out. Thanks so much. Have a great, great evening, everyone.